And before we kick off the weekend on the Mark Thompson Show, it's customary we take a look at some of the offerings in both cinema and on television. He comes and goes on a rainbow. I'm talking about the social laughter himself, Michael Snyder. Michael, it's good to have you back. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm back to Los Angeles from San Francisco, and of course, Mark isn't here to welcome me. But you know what I say: less Thompson, Mo Kelly. I'm happy to have you here, brother.
I like that. I like that. Thank you for that. It's great to have you back. So, what do we have on deck today?
A number of movies and maybe a little bit of TV coverage as well. Let's jump right into things. On the heels of, and I put this word new in quotes, new cinematic interpretations of Dracula and Frankenstein. We had Luc Besson's recent Dracula. We had Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. We get actress filmmaker Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, which ostensibly spins out of Mary Shelley's Gothic novel, and in fact opens with leading lady Jessie Buckley, who of course is up for an Oscar after her performance in Hamnet. We'll see how that goes during the upcoming Oscar cast. And here she plays Shelley herself at first, in a sort of limbo, railing against her oppressors, one must assume the male-dominated society she lived in the 1800s. And I'm thinking, more exploitation of those classic monsters that once powered Universal Studios movie output. Is it a trend? Is it laziness? Is it that everything's in the public domain? But for whatever reason, here we are with another take on the Frankenstein story. This one, a wild, angry, and sometimes funny post-feminist take on Shelley's monstrous opus. This one is primarily set in Depression-era Chicago, when gangsters purportedly ruled the city. You've seen The Untouchables, Mo, have you not? I mean, we know what's up in Chicago in the 30s.
Your family's dead. Everyone you know is dead.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we see one loudmouth Moll named Ida, played by Buckley, in a restaurant kind of going off, and she pisses off a mob boss, so she's tossed down a flight of stairs to her death. Cut to the front door of a building housing the laboratory of mad scientist Dr. Euphronius, a woman scientist played by Annette Bening. And who's standing there ringing her bell? No less than Dr. Frankenstein's original monster, still around since the 1800s, when he was created, as I recollect, in an Eastern European castle, and here played with bursts of fury and great sadness by Christian Bale. So, you know how a lot of people mistakenly refer to the monster as Frankenstein? Oh, look out, it's Frankenstein. You know that, right?
Right, it's Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, but here the monster goes by the name Frankenstein, a.k.a. Frank, and apparently he knows that Dr. Euphronius is experimenting with reviving the dead, and since he craves both a companion and carnal satisfaction, this movie pulls no punches, he convinces the doctor to revive the most available dead hottie, the recently murdered Ida, and their eventual spree of violence puts two detectives, Jake Wiles, played by Gyllenhaal's partner, Peter Sarsgaard, and Myrna Malloy, played by Penelope Cruz, on the trail of this patchwork couple. And of course, more mayhem ensues. I got to give you one more casting note, and it's significant to the story. Jake Gyllenhaal, Maggie's actor brother, very familiar, plays a Fred Astaire-style Hollywood song and dance man who inspires Bale's Frank. You see the monster sitting in movie theaters, watching this guy and trying to emulate his suave approach to the ladies. So Gyllenhaal is paying obvious homage to previous iterations of the story, as well as Bonnie and Clyde, 1930s crime dramas from Hollywood, and Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein, with a classic Hollywood dance number that is a little too familiar. It does feel, pardon the expression, stitched together, and the result is kind of energetic chaos, which is honestly further fueled by Buckley and Bale going as over the top as the director permits them. To give you exactly an idea of how tongue-in-cheek Gyllenhaal's approach is, And I guess it's kind of a spoiler, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. The song accompanying the end credits is the novelty hit Monster Mash by Bobby Boris Pickett. And now that
What?
I think of it, yeah, I know. The Bride is a novelty movie. It's an entertaining one that doesn't always work. And I'd call it inferior to Gyllenhaal's previous directorial effort, The Lost Daughter, which also featured Jessie Buckley. But, I got a kick out of it in a visceral way. It's a mess, a beautiful, crazy mess. It's in theaters.
Hey, Michael, can I ask you a quick question? I was
Sure.
going to ask you whether Igor was in the movie trying to be funny, but there is a Young Frankenstein homage connection here, correct?
Yeah, and there is a maid at the doctor's laboratory played by Jeannie Berlin in over-the-top fashion. So I guess that's kind of a reference. She's sort of an assistant, but she's dressed kind of like your prototypical French maid. I kind of wish this worked better, but as I'm watching it, and in an audience full of young men and women who are at this word-of-mouth screening I attended, who have the makeup that Jessie Buckley's bride is wearing, with the smeared black stuff. They've all emulated it from the trailers and whatever. And I thought, well, this is on its way to being the Rocky Horror Picture Show of the 21st century. Maybe that's where it's, heading. Kind of crazy.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Hoppers is the latest film from Pixar, and I'm a big fan of Pixar's movies, particularly the Toy Story films, the Incredibles movies. I really loved Soul, and I obviously think that Inside Out is some great stuff. But Hoppers is not great. It's better, I think, than the more recent Pixar output, including Elementals, which didn't work for me. Essentially, this film is about an eco-friendly girl who is raised by her ranger grandma to revere nature and all the creatures of the woods. And she's heartsick when a local mayor, who, by the way, is voiced by John Hamm, decides that he's going to exploit this sylvan natural area and turn it into, I don't know, condos or something. And so she's furious about this. And it just so happens that a local professor at the school she attends has developed a technology that can insert human consciousness into these little robotic animals that you could pass for the creatures of the woods, but are then driven by whoever is kind of inhabiting the body of the little robotic creature. So she ends up getting her brain transferred into like a little beaver or some such, and goes to the woods to try to convince the animals that they've got to get going, they've got to leave, or they have to figure out a way to protest whatever's going to be happening. So it's got this eco-friendly attitude. And there's the kind of cute technology, and each animal has a distinct personality. And of course, the voice work is top drawer. In addition to John Hamm as the nominal villain, Mayor Jerry, you also get Meryl Streep as the Queen of the Insects. You gave, Dave Franco, Kathy Najimy is the doctor who's in charge. The professor who's trying to build these little robotic creatures. And you can't complain about what Pixar does in terms of the quality of the animation and the casting. It's always first rate. And I enjoyed this to a point, but it had third act problems where super science stuff starts happening, and it happens at such a rapid pace in the interest of advancing the story that it kind of lost me. I like to bring up, George Miller, the comedian's adage, buy the premise and you buy the bit. So I'm buying the premise for a while, and then they lose me when they kind of go off the rails to advance the story in a swift fashion. Nonetheless, this is good for families. I liked it better than a couple of more recent Pixar things. Hoppers is playing in theaters all around our great nation, directed by Daniel Chong, and he co-wrote the screenplay with Jesse Andrews. And, until it goes off the rails, I was like, yeah, Pixar's back at it. There will be a new Toy Story film very soon, so be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, let us move on to something that I was excited to go see, and you will be able to see on your TV screen on the 20th of March, and that is the feature film finale to the series Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. You know how when you rejoin a series after seeing a few episodes and it's a new episode, they sometimes go previously on Peaky Blinders. Well,
Right.
previously on Peaky Blinders, Tommy Shelby, head of the early 20th century Birmingham, England gang known as the Peaky Blinders because they carry little razors in their hats to blind their enemies. And it turns out that Tommy's also a king of the gypsies. He had lost so many loved ones that he had become numb. And in the final episode of this hit Netflix series that I doted on, Tommy, played by the great Cillian Murphy of Oppenheimer fame and a variety of other projects, walked away from his old life a broken man who decided to shut out the world. It was a sad but really appropriate way to end creator Stephen Knight's brilliant, complex, spectacularly staged period crime drama. And now Tommy's back, and he's back because this movie, set a few years after the end of the series Peaky Blinders in 1940, addresses the madness of World War II and a German money plot to flood England with counterfeit pound notes to kill the economy in the UK and thereby weaken their enemy. And the Peaky Blinders are being enlisted by a traitorous British guy, played by my close personal friend. I'm kidding. We've met on a couple of occasions. The great actor Tim Roth. And this guy is trying to convince the Peaky Blinders, now being guided by Tommy's bastard son, who incidentally is played by everyone's favorite loose cannon. You can't get enough of Barry Keoghan. Boy, he is just right there. When you need a lunatic, when you need somebody who's unhinged, you hire Barry Keoghan. Anyway, he plays the bastard son of Tommy Shelby, now running the Peaky Blinders. And this guy is convinced by the traitor to help facilitate this plot for money. And so obviously Tommy, despite being cut off from all of this and not interested in it, has a conscience and has a love of country and doesn't want his bastard son to have this kind of smear on him. So he comes out of retirement, I guess, and enters the fray. And it's, if you've seen the previous series, this is really a lovely way to end things. I mean, it was fine the way it ended, but it's so beautifully executed, directed by Tom Harper, written by Stephen Knight. And again, the performances are great. Amongst them, the supporting cast includes Stephen Graham, who you may recall recently from Adolescence. He plays a longtime Shelby ally. And showing up for the first time, Rebecca Ferguson, who plays the twin sister of the mother of the bastard that Tommy has to basically save from himself. And, there are moments and moments. It's so beautifully executed. And like the original series, there is a great, albeit anachronistic rock score, including Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds doing a new version of their Peaky Blinders theme, Red Right Hand. It will be in theaters starting this weekend. And then on March 20th, it'll be streaming at Netflix. If it's your jam, I say check it out. But I wonder sometimes with things like this and the Downton Abbey feature film, if you haven't seen the TV show, how much can you relate to what you're seeing on screen? I don't know how you feel about that, Mo.
I actually think, yes, you probably do need to see the preceding anthology to best appreciate, especially what you describe as like a culminating event for the series.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope doing one of these things, but if it had gone direct to Netflix, it would be a little more understandable, but it's in theaters, and I hope it does well because, again, these are talented people doing great work, and God, this thing looks beautiful. Cinematography, art direction, the whole deal. And you can't really go wrong with the likes of Cillian Murphy, Rebecca Ferguson, Tim Roth, etc. Okay. Mark always blanches at this, and I guess Kim does too, but we got a new horror film, and I don't mean as in The Bride. This is a full-on insane horror movie called Dolly. And it has nothing to do with a certain well-endowed country singer, songwriter, actress, and humanitarian. And in fact, the goings-on in this low-budget, high-violence, fervently and gratuitously gore-splattered horror film are as inhumane as the genre can go. I don't believe Dolly Parton will be seeing Dolly despite the title.
Michael,
girl, baby girl, don't even play.
Just the picture is going to give me nightmares, Michael Snyder. I can't even.
I know. I figured as much. This is not one I'd recommend. Hey, bring the family to Hoppers, Kim, but I would say run fast.
Image is hideous.
Yeah. So imagine if the haunted doll Annabelle, from the Conjuring franchise, magically spawned a bloated, obsessed, seemingly impervious monster in a filthy, blood-stained dress with its face hidden behind a giant cracked doll head. Those people who are watching the video feed know what I'm talking about. The rest of you just have to imagine it. This Dolly lives in a rundown house in the woods, collects actual dolls, scores of them, and wants to mother a human as a doll. And in this case, the unfortunate victim is Macy, by the way, played by Fabienne Therese in true Scream Queen fashion. And Macy is a young woman out on a hike with her boyfriend. And, he's played by a very familiar actor, Sean William Scott, who is, along with Therese, one of the producers of this movie. So it looks like Macy isn't Dolly's first plaything. She is trapped in the house, and you got an idea of what's going to happen from that point on. It is so over the top that even I was like, yeah, I don't know. There are references to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Every splatter film you've ever seen, they tried to boil it all down to this. And for what this is, I think fans of the genre are going to like it. I mean, it is pretty grim stuff and pretty damn brutal. I'm pretty tolerant of horror movies, but this wasn't something I could say, yeah, horror fans, check it out. But, if this is your jam, like I said, Rod Blackhurst wrote and directed it, and you do have Sean William Scott and Ethan Suplee in supporting roles. So maybe, I don't know. All right, we're going to wrap up with a movie that I really got a kick out of. And Stephen Graham, of course, is name-checked as being in the cast of Peaky Blinders and a recurring character. And he is one of the stars of Heel, which is subtitled The Good Boy, which is a new movie by Jan Komasa from Poland. And this is a filmmaker who actually was Academy Award nominated for his movie Corpus Christi in Best Foreign Language Films. And he also made a really kind of fascinating English language film called Anniversary with Diane Lane, which I liked very much last year. This, on the other hand, is a very twisted movie that starts when we meet this kind of thuggish young British kid named Tommy, who is doing drugs and taking advantage of women and just beating on people. And he's out of his mind at this one point, and he is kidnapped off the streets of the town where he is, and he wakes up with a metal collar around his neck in the basement of a plush mansion that is owned by a husband and wife who have a young son. That's Chris and Catherine, and they are played by Stephen Graham and another Oscar nominee, Andrea Riseborough, and they have this young son. And the guy Tommy is never told why he's there, but he's shown like TikTok clips of the violence he's visited on people, and they're attempting to rehabilitate this guy. You don't know why specifically, but it is incredibly compelling, and it's kind of funny at times, and I just was blown away by it. Anson Boone as Tommy is so hateful, you kind of don't care what kind of horrible things are visited upon him by Chris and Catherine, but you're also thinking, why did they kidnap this guy? Why is he locked up in their basement? What are they attempting to do? How and why? And I was just caught up in this damn thing, and it does some really remarkable psychological twists and turns over the course of what is essentially a pretty economical hour and 50 minutes. It kind of breezed by. I thought Heel was a hell of a film, and it is in limited release right now, but it's also streaming. So if you've got video on demand, I recommend Heel. It's creepy in the best possible way, as opposed to creepy in an obvious and blood splattered way like Dolly.
Okay, so Michael, let's quickly review. You had The Bride. The cast is stellar. Maggie and Jake Gyllenhaal, Annette Bening, Christian Bale, Peter Sarsgaard, Penelope Cruz. And it has a wild and angry post-feminist take set in Depression-era Chicago. And what's most interesting to me is it's self-aware, paying, in effect, homage to previous Frankenstein movies and iterations. Is that fair?
Yeah, very fair. And again, it doesn't cohere really, but man, what a ride, you know?
Hopper's latest Pixar offering. I had been wondering about this because Pixar used to be can't miss. They always hit the mark, and it was just a matter of how much you love the Pixar offering, but not as much lately. And Hoppers seems to be more in that vein where it's not great, telling the story of an eco-friendly girl who's fighting to keep condos from being constructed. Like the idea, but you said it lost a little steam and it lost its way a bit, my word, in the third act.
Right.
Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man. The cast, again, Cillian Murphy, Oscar winner, Barry Keoghan, Tim Roth, Rebecca Ferguson. A lovely way to close out the saga. It's going to be in theaters, and then it's going to hit Netflix on March 20th. So if you're a Peaky Blinders fan, this is a fitting close to the saga.
Yeah, for the fans and people familiar with the story, it will have impact.
Dolly, not Dolly Parton.
No.
I'm saying it. Think of Annabelle, a sponsor killer who collects actual dolls. It's kind of a color by number slasher, but it's very over the top. Maybe every slasher/splatter film element is in it. And it's another movie which is self-aware in that regard. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but give you a better, smoother ride with that wheel, if it makes sense. But it's not a great movie.
There is a grisly, sequence which people are going to, either run for the exits. Like I told Kim to run away from this. Yeah, there are things in this that'll make you want to get up and bolt.
And surprisingly, I say surprisingly because I didn't think you were going to like this, Heel talks about a villainous man who has been kidnapped and ends up on a leash, collar around his neck in the basement of someone he does not know and is never told why he's there, but is slowly revealed it's an attempt at rehabilitation. A remarkable, as you said, psychological thriller, dark imagery, but you highly recommend.
Yeah, you really don't know if is it rehab? Is it revenge? That's one of the big questions as you watch this thing.
Michael Snyder, we didn't have a chance to get into TV, but very quickly, I'm watching Paradise Season 2. I'm not enamored with what I've seen so far. The Night Agent Season 3. I watched Season 1 and Season 2. I hated Season 2, so I don't know if I'm going to watch Season 3. And I'm all in on Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2. And I'm also watching Cross Season 2. That's my TV real quick.
For me, Paradise, going outside the dome, and not to get into any great detail for people who haven't watched it yet, was an exciting maneuver, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I have loved Monarch Legacy of Monsters from the first season on, and of course, Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell, his son, are playing the same character over the course of decades, and I'm loving what I'm watching so far. And I did want to say just quickly, Ponies has been massively entertaining to me. It's, all up at Peacock at the moment. And it's a smart, cool espionage series set in the 1970s Cold War in Moscow for the most part. And it features really energetic and entertaining performances by two young women who are widowed because of some spycraft. And they're played by Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones and Haley Lou Richardson, who was just so good in Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. I really recommend Ponies, and all the 70s music, needle drops. Oh, Lordy, revel in them. And that's about it from me.
Michael Snyder, before you leave out of here on this rainbow, very quickly remind people how they can find you on social media and beyond.
Well, you can read my reviews and my essays on popular culture at thevoicesf.org. And obviously, check in with me on X, if you dare, that cesspool known as X, at Culture Blaster. And you can also find me at Mike the Knife 123 at Instagram, just to see my comings and goings. And speaking of which, always great to have you come by, Mo Kelly, and always a pleasure.
It is always a pleasure. And there he goes on a rainbow. He comes and goes on a rainbow. Mike.